Welcome back to another episode of
Inside the Message.
We just have so much fun with that.
It's my favorite part.
All right, very cool. Wow,
Yeah.
What a great message. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough talk,
Yeah.
because there is so much going on.
Right.
And a lot of people are struggling. There's absolutely no doubt a lot of people are struggling for lots of reasons. And I spent most of my life in that energy of thinking that the world was kind of coming at me. And I figured that the person that wins the game, so to speak, is able to get to a point where they can navigate through what's coming at us. Right? And it's coming, dodge the bullet there, and you got to go around here and go around there. And I was constantly trying to navigate through what I thought was coming at me. And I didn't realize that simple but profound true thought principle that you shared today. And you kind of went to the one that I think is really almost the bedrock of our true thought principles, teaching, which is, that thoughts are things. And you really started talking about how thoughts are reflective, and that we're looking at the effect when we look out upon the world. And so we keep trying to address the effect rather than realize that it's an effect. So it's really like almost everything with the ego mind. I know you and I have lots of conversations about that, but it's upside down.
Right.
Yeah, it's upside down from the way things really work in truth. And it's been called, the law, and it's been called all kinds of things, but it's just the way things work.
Right.
It's just the way things, work in reality.
Sure.
And reality is here. We're always in reality, right? So we're not escaping reality because we're having a dream of separation. We don't escape anything. We're just swimming through an illusion, right? Or walking through an illusion that we've manifested.
Right. So one of the things is that as I look at what's going on in the world, and in particular, I had just watched an episode of the news, and I saw, the riotings and the violence, and that's happening in many of our cities. And, what we can do is we can talk about how horrible it is, certainly, and we can look at how it makes us feel and what it brings up for us. I think that's really important. But in truth, we don't resolve it. We don't heal it or transcend it by condemning it. Or the people involved. However, what we have to look at collectively and individually is, what is the thought system that brought it forth? What are the thought systems? So as a system, we talk about like systemic racism or systemic poverty, or any type of system that is in place currently in our society is reflective of the thought system that made it. And so we just have to look at what are our thoughts and our beliefs. And when we are able to do that authentically and honestly, then we can let them go. We can begin to dismantle and reject the false perceptions, the false beliefs, and we can turn to true thoughts. We can turn to spirit. We can turn to God. We can turn to love and to one another. And one of the things I wanted to make clear is that all of this is based upon our identity, our divine identity. And so there are two thought systems, and we are seeing the effects of a false system of a thought system based on false perception that works. It's operating according to law. It's reproducing after its kind. But is that what we want? And I know the answer is no. So I think that the good thing is that we are no longer saying it's okay. Right. And so when we see the unrest and the discomfort, It's because we are deciding to choose anew. And so sometimes the way that we do that can be counterproductive, certainly, but at least we're moving in the direction of, you know what, this is no longer acceptable. We are going to recreate from thoughts of truth and thoughts of love.
So let's take this to its logical end. If thoughts are things, and if nothing's happening to us, it's reflecting us. When we look out on the world today, what we're actually seeing is a reflection of what we've been asking for. We've been asking for things to be different. We've been asking for peace on earth. I've been in many, many circles, spiritual circles with people ever since I've known you, and not much before that, honestly, because I kind of isolated myself and was on my own pathway for several years before we met. And when we met, you kind of reintroduced me to, she introduced me to, spiritual community. The very first time we met, we shared that story recently, was at a spiritual workshop, a weekend workshop. So getting back, back into community, and I've heard people, as we would go around a room in some of the classes that we've worked on together, that people would go around and, share a prayer. We did classes on, you taught classes on prayer, and I've since joined you, and we've done that on several occasions. And so people would go around the room and doing a prayer. A lot of people would say, well, I want to pray for world peace, right? I want to pray for the end of war. I want to pray for health, and I want to pray. It's called, the phrase is called destructive creation. Destructive creation. The new has to come at the cost of the old. And you've been talking about it in several of your talks since we began this ministry together, and that is that are you ready to be made new? Are you ready? Have you been asking for things to be different? And then when things become different, everybody goes, no, well, I want things to be better, but I don't want things to be different. Well, you can't have that. That's not possible.
Or you don't want things to change.
You don't want things to change.
Yeah.
You don't want things to change. I want things to be better, but I don't want things to change.
Right.
That's not logical. That's not reasonable. So really, taken to its logical conclusion, what's really happening, this foundational principle, and this is, I think, one of the points that I want to share today, is that this principle is so powerful that if you see what's going on, if you're looking outside into the world today on the world stage, it's an outpicturing of our consciousness reflecting back. And it's exactly what we've asked for. We've asked for change. We ask for things to be different. We want to move towards peace, not war. We do not want to be controlled by centralized power structures that are basically fear-driven and ego-based. We're looking and asking for things to be more, for us to take our power back. We don't need, we're getting to a place where we can make our own choices about how we treat our neighbors, rather than being told how we should be treating our neighbors. It's really simple. We have a guidance system. We turn within and we ask, what's the truth? And in that request and in that joining in union and dialogue, we become informed.
But yes, and that's how it operates on the individual level. And yet what I would say is that because we live in a society that we have built structures like police systems and voting districts, and there are things that are in place in the structures that we've made that I think that have to be looked at. So what are the thought systems that were the basis for creating these structures? And that's a little bit more, I want to say it's a little bit more complicated, but it is the same principle. And it's just like, Tony and I, in our board of directors, we just created bylaws for our community. So True Thought Spiritual Community is a registered nonprofit, in the state of Tennessee, and we will become a 501c3. And so we were required to have bylaws and board meetings and whatnot. And so I've been involved in many spiritual communities now, and we wanted our bylaws to be really simple. And the last place where I served, they were like 30 pages long. And I think the place before that was about similar, but then what was interesting in that community, we saw the very first bylaws and it was like 1 page long.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to keep it really simple. We wanted to be principle based, but in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I can see where over time in an organizational structure, out of fear, we make them more complicated.
Absolutely.
And I would suggest that in our society, we're in this place of a reset where we have this opportunity, like the spider, in the story, to dismantle the spider web and then let yesterday be sufficient unto itself. Let today be sufficient unto itself. Let's let go of yesterday. Where there is forgiveness, where there is amends to be made, yes, we make them. But how do we move forward from where we're at today?
Right.
And I think that that's what I'm interested in. And what I know is that it's not out there, that it begins within my own consciousness. It begins when we're with people, as we will be over the weekend, just like you, where conversations, start up about politics or about what's going on in the world, that are we going to jump right in the conversation with our old prevailing positions and opinions, or are we going to pause? Are we going to begin to go to spirit first, asking what the truth is, and begin again?
Right. I think for me, it's, when I see things happening, before this teaching came into my life, my reaction was that person needs to be acting differently, or that situation needs to be improved. We need new regulations. We need new rules. We need more control. That's what the ego is all about. That's the whole game of the ego, is control. It wants to be the king of the world. It wants to manage everything and everybody. It literally does. And we all have an aspect within us, and we do a workshop called The Journey to Infinite Self, where we actually look at those different aspects of ourselves. And the controller is one of those huge aspects. It's right like the gatekeeper, right? And the point I want to make, however, is that ultimately what we begin to realize through this teaching is that if we want to help people, we don't actually address their behavior. What we address is consciousness, because at a certain level of consciousness, it makes absolute sense to murder somebody. I know that sounds weird, right? And now we have laws that say, no, that doesn't make sense. You can't do that. So and that's why we have governance, and we've given our power literally to police and the military and our governance systems and our war machines, because we wanted to be protected from our neighbor. We're the ones that asked for that. We created these structures, and we support them yet today, financially and emotionally and physically and mentally. And the point I want to make, however, is that instead of attacking or trying to change the behavior, if we recognize that the behavior is just a natural outpicturing of a certain level of consciousness. And so if we had a roadmap of consciousness and we could see where we want to go, then we could look at the roadmap and say, I want to get to this place. So I'll give you a bizarre example. So imagine trying to get Jesus, trying to talk him in to stealing something or murdering somebody, go to an extreme. He was like, why would he not do that? Because he understands the way things work. That's a certain frequency of consciousness, and all levels of consciousness are frequency-based. So thoughts or things Or is another way of saying that every thought you hold has a vibration, and it's like a magnet, right? And it goes out and it resonates and co-resonates and draws to itself similar energy, right? So if it's an energy of low octave, low frequency, it's drawing to itself that. And what's at those low levels of frequency? Anger, frustration, shame, guilt, depression. I mean, all those energies are there on the low. What's at the upper level up there, right, is joy and bliss. So what do you want in your life, right? If you want more joy and bliss, you have to be operating in that frequency. And that's what our teaching is about. That's what it's what we're trying to help people see, is that we get our power back when we quit saying the problem's out there and that the behavior's the problem, and we start recognizing that it's just the consciousness. And so then we can help people by educating them about their consciousness. And one of my favorite first steps, and one I've always introduced to people, without telling them what I'm even doing really, is talking about, let's start operating from a level of integrity, right? Because then you mentioned that, but if we can get to the point of integrity in the way we operate in the world, well, now we're going to see more integrity being reflected back as our experience.
Right. Yeah. I guess, what I've been observing when I plug in is just a lot of kvetching, just a lot of kvetching. And, beyond the initial anger or frustration, becoming aware of it, that it arises within me, not out there. But the frustration and the anger and it doesn't actually do any earthly good unless we take it to the step where we're then motivated to change. Unless we're then motivated to look at ourselves and, begin to, the quote from A Course in disown, disavow, that which is not true, that which is no longer serving, and be as committed to love. Wow, excuse me, that felt really good though.
You'll be able to mic that down a little bit.
But, be as committed to love. And what I know is that in the spiritual communities that I'm connected with, my family spiritual communities, including our budding True Thought spiritual community, is that I tend to hang out with people who do focus in that way.
Yeah.
And I do feel that where sometimes there is, some concern, or how do we really address these issues? And we address the issues by not manipulating the issue, but by going back to the consciousness that brought the issue into being. We go to cause, we go to the root cause, and we begin to have some real authentic honesty with ourselves.
Self-honesty. Yeah,
and
huge deal.
And so when I'm triggered by what I see, that event is neutral, and that seems really callous, but the event in and of itself is neutral. How I perceive it, how I respond to it is anything but neutral. And so we get to give it the meaning it has, and by having the courage to look at what we've made, we can choose again. It is filled with, today's message was really intended to be hopeful. It was intended to say, what we're seeing, we can see it as the world falling apart, or we can see it as this great new opportunity. And that's how I choose to see it.
Well, I definitely saw it as a warm salve, so to speak, that that we just need to come back to the realization of how powerful we really are. Because we can, if all events are neutral, and we're giving everything all the meaning that it has, and what we're experiencing is a reflection of the meaning we have given things in the past, or that the world has given meaning to things in the past, then we absolutely begin to take our power back, and we begin to see we're going to attract into our experience a higher vibration. How do we do that? By holding a higher vibration by withholding judgment, condemnation, angst, and frustration. Sometimes you just have to unplug. If it's really tripping you up, the best thing to do is just unplug. Turn off the radio, turn off the computer, turn off the TV. Turning off the TV has gotten a lot easier for a lot of people, right? But we've kind of switched our focus to the internet. Well, in this particular situation, we're glad that you're focused on the internet today because here we are, right? But we have to decide how we are going to set up our channel, so to speak. What do we want channeling to us, right? And we do that with Facebook, and we do it with YouTube, we do it with Instagram, we do it with these social media outlets. And we do that by what we resonate with. In other words, what do we like? What do we, share, and those kinds of things. And those computer systems, those algorithms, they automatically give us more, just like the world. I mean, it's literally a perfect example of what the world does. Mm-hmm. And then we found ourselves in an echo chamber, and everybody's in total agreement with us, and we're happy because we're all kvetching about the same damn thing. Right? Look how many people are unhappy, and you're not seeing the other side. And yes, there's another side, because this is a world of duality.
Well, in that echo chamber too, it creates a false intimacy. So you're joining with one another based upon false premises, which is a false sense of intimacy. Yeah. And so we get this opportunity to recreate our world, to become intimate within ourselves first. What do I really think about this? Forget what, whoever says about it, or my spouse, or
anybody.
Right. Anybody, and go within. Use the world as you would a contemplative text, as you would a holy scripture, as you would an epic story from the Bible, and sit and contemplate. What is the truth here? What is this revealing to me? What is this showing me? And listen. When we do that, when each of us do that, oh my gosh, look out.
Yeah. It's very powerful.
I'm really excited. And I think that we get this opportunity to keep persisting with our true thought principles. We're going to keep, unraveling and adding more and repeating ones we've already shared and how they apply in life. Right. And I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
What did you think of the spider story?
I like the story. Yeah. And it was the story of destructive creation. I mean, that's what I was, watching when you were telling the story. I was kind of watching how destructive creation, it looks destructive, but it's just creation.
Yeah.
Right? Moving from the old, the new can only come at the cost of the old.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the world, and the way our animal kingdom and the way everything operates, it's extremely efficient. Right? We're the ones that leave a mess behind ourselves, trailing along behind us. I'm just thinking about the pig pen or whatever, that the cartoon character always had a dust of a trail of dust following behind him.
I thought that was Linus.
That might have been Linus. What do I know, right? But the point is that we don't operate quite as efficiently, and that's why we have other issues in the world, like contamination of our environment. Environmental issues, because we don't operate, we don't see the world from that same view that even our pets and the animals around us and the insects and so forth. I mean, it's a very beautifully efficient, that everything is taken care of itself and everything supports itself. See, we're all in this together. We're all in relationship together. Mm-hmm. That could be another talk.
It could be. So let today be sufficient unto itself. When you go to bed tonight, just forgive anything that felt a little off today or out of integrity, and begin a practice of just doing that on a daily basis. Yeah. Let each day be sufficient unto itself. Absolutely. And enjoy your life, whatever it is bringing forth. We're going to enjoy our life. I've never been more thrilled or happy doing what we're called to do, being in this new relationship of True Thought Spiritual Community
with you,
and having released what was done for us, and what going into a new expression. Yeah.
It's challenging but exciting.
It is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. If you find value, please hit the like button. You can share our YouTube channel with other people. And we certainly do appreciate that. And check out our website, truethought.org. We love you so much, and we're so grateful. We know you're there. We appreciate you. We know who you are. We know what you are. We know how you serve. God bless you. Thanks so much for being with us today. I love you so much. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Right.
Bye.
Love you, baby. Bye.
I'm not saying bye to you, though. Bye.